Hey there. Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring some Buddhist teachings on truth,
Okay.
virtue, and persistence.
Sounds good.
We've got excerpts from classic texts and some insightful commentary by Ajahn Lee.
Awesome.
What's really cool about this stuff
Yeah.
is that it's not just ancient philosophy.
Right.
It's a practical framework for living a better life.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about these concepts.
Right.
They're often seen as these lofty ideals.
Yeah.
But when you dig into the teachings, you see how applicable they are to our everyday experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start with this idea of truth as a foundation.
Okay.
There's this great analogy in the Majjhima Nikaya about a royal elephant that goes into battle
Oh, wow.
using every part of its body
Okay.
except its trunk.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
It is.
The elephant trainer knows that
Yeah.
until the elephant uses its trunk.
Right?
It's not truly committed to the fight.
Wow.
And the text relates this to truthfulness.
Oh.
Even the small truths we hold back,
Yeah.
the little white lies or things we leave unsaid, they diminish our integrity.
It's like we're going into life's battles, holding back a part of ourselves.
Right.
I know I've definitely experienced that feeling, like I'm not being fully authentic.
Yeah,
Have you ever felt that way?
absolutely. And it makes you wonder,
Right.
what are the consequences of those little untruths?
Yeah.
How does holding back affect our relationships, our decision-making, even our own sense of self?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to another point made in
Okay.
M&80.
Okay.
Truth is something we can experience directly.
Right.
It's not just a set of beliefs. It's something we can discover
Yeah.
and verify for ourselves.
Right. It's about seeking knowledge firsthand.
Yeah.
Not just accepting what we're told.
Right.
But then we have this excerpt from the Anguttara Nikaya that adds another layer to the conversation.
Okay.
It suggests that not every truth needs to be spoken.
So how do we reconcile these seemingly contradictory ideas?
That's where the concept of skillful speech comes in, right?
Right.
It's not just about blurting out whatever we think is true.
Yeah.
It's about considering the impact of our words and choosing to speak in a way that benefits both ourselves and others.
Right.
Sometimes silence might actually be the most truthful action.
Wow.
Exactly. Truthfulness isn't black and white.
Right.
It's nuanced.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for speaking up. And there are times when holding back might be the more skillful choice.
Right.
It's about understanding the context
Yeah.
and choosing our words carefully.
This reminds me of a discussion in the MN95
Okay.
between the Buddha and a Brahmin named Kappadika Bharadvaja.
Oh,
They're talking about how simply relying on conviction
right.
or tradition to determine what's true can be limiting.
The Buddha is basically encouraging critical thinking. He's saying, don't just take my word for it.
Okay.
Investigate for yourself. That's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially today when we're bombarded with information from all sides.
Yeah.
How do you sift through it all and determine what's true for you?
That's such an important question.
Yeah,
It's easy to get caught up in dogma
right.
or follow the crowd without really questioning things.
Yeah,
But these teachings encourage us to be more discerning,
I agree.
to examine our beliefs and be open to new perspectives.
And that openness to new perspectives is essential
Yeah.
when we move to the next concept, virtue,
Okay.
in these Buddhist teachings. Virtue is all about action.
Okay.
It's not enough to just have good intentions. It's about aligning our actions with our values.
Right. It's about walking the walk,
Yeah,
not just talking the talk.
exactly.
And Ajahn Lee has this great quote in Food for Thought
Oh.
that really drives this point home.
Okay.
It says, we tell ourselves that we want to be happy, but we go jumping into fires.
Right.
We know what things are poison,
Yeah.
yet we go ahead and drink them anyway. This is called being a traitor to yourself.
It's like we sabotage our own happiness with our choices. We
Yeah.
all have aspirations.
Right.
But sometimes our actions don't match up.
Mm-hmm.
Think about your own life.
Okay.
Are there areas where you might be drinking poison, even though you know it's not good for you?
That's a really insightful question.
Yeah.
I know I've definitely been guilty of that in the past.
Yeah.
It's like that disconnect between what we know is good for us
Right.
and what we actually do.
Mm-hmm.
But the teachings offer a way to bridge that gap.
And that's where the 5 gifts come in.
Okay.
These are outlined in the Anguttara Nikaya, and they're not presented as strict rules,
Okay.
but as actions that create freedom from harm.
Okay. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with the 5 gifts.
Sure.
Can you break those down for me?
Absolutely. They are abstaining from taking life, stealing, harmful sexual conduct, lying, and intoxicants.
Okay.
And it's not just about avoiding these actions in a literal sense.
Right.
It's about cultivating a way of being that embodies these principles.
So it's about more than just following the rules.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the deeper reasons behind them.
Right.
And making them a part of who we are.
Exactly. And the text emphasizes how these actions have a ripple effect by embodying these 5 gifts. We not only create a more harmonious environment for ourselves, but we contribute to the well-being of everyone around us.
That's a powerful idea. It's like our actions have consequences that extend far beyond ourselves.
And that interconnectedness is a key theme in Buddhist thought.
Okay.
Another excerpt.
Yeah.
The AN 10.165 outlines 3 levels of purity. Purity in thought, word, and deed.
So it's not just about acting virtuously.
Right.
It's about cultivating purity in all aspects of our being.
Exactly.
Our thoughts, our words, and our actions.
Right. They're all interwoven.
Yeah.
Ajahn Lee expands on this concept in his book, The Path to Peace and Freedom, where he outlines 3 levels of virtue.
Okay.
He starts with the lower level, which he describes as basic morality.
So this is like the foundation of virtue.
Exactly.
The basic ethical guidelines that we all need to follow to live a good life.
It's about not harming others, being honest, and treating others with respect.
Okay.
It's the essential groundwork for a more virtuous life.
Right.
Then we move up to the middle level, which focuses on guarding our thoughts and cultivating goodwill.
I think a lot of us struggle with that.
Oh, absolutely.
Negative thoughts can be so insidious.
Yeah.
They can really take over sometimes.
Absolutely. This level of virtue is about becoming more aware of those negative thought patterns and actively choosing to cultivate positive ones.
Right.
It's about interrupting that spiral of negativity and choosing to focus on kindness, compassion, and understanding.
It's like we're training our minds to be more virtuous.
Exactly.
Just like we train our bodies to be healthy.
Yeah. And then there's this third higher level of virtue where it becomes less about following rules or suppressing negative thoughts and more about virtue arising naturally from a deeper understanding.
So it's like virtue becomes an integrated part of who we are.
Exactly.
Not just something we're trying to do.
And that takes persistence.
Okay.
It's not a one-time achievement. It's an ongoing practice.
Okay, so we've talked about truth and virtue. And it seems like persistence is the key to putting these concepts into action, right? But how do we cultivate that persistence?
Well, the source material uses some amazing metaphors that illustrate this point.
Okay.
One that stands out is from the Therigatha, which depicts Venerable Mattagaputta pushing through wild grasses as a metaphor for overcoming obstacles on the path to inner peace.
Wow, that's such a vivid image.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, this is tough work, but I'm going to keep going.
Right.
I'm not going to give up.
Right. And this brings us to the concept of right effort, which is explored in both the Majjhima Nikaya and Samyutta Nikaya. This is a key principle in Buddhist practice. It's about finding the right balance of effort, not pushing ourselves to the point of burnout, but also not being too lax.
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly.
Where we're challenging ourselves without overwhelming ourselves.
And to illustrate this point, the Anguttara Nikaya tells a story about Soma, who is struggling to find that balance. In his own practice, the Buddha uses a great analogy of tuning a veena.
I love analogies.
Yeah.
They make these abstract concepts so much easier to understand. So what's the veena analogy all about?
The Buddha explains that if the strings on a veena are too tight, it won't play properly. But if they're too loose, it won't produce beautiful music either.
Right.
It's about finding the right tension, the sweet spot where the instrument can create harmonious sounds.
Right. And just like with the veena, our efforts in cultivating truth and virtue need that balance too.
Yeah.
We can't be too hard on ourselves, but we also can't just coast along.
Right.
It's finding that middle path where we're making progress without burning out. Do you find that resonates with your own experiences?
Absolutely. It's something we all grapple with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding that sweet spot between discipline and self-compassion. And these teachings offer such a valuable perspective on how to approach that challenge. What's interesting is that this idea of balance also ties back to truthfulness.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about the 5 gifts we discussed earlier.
Okay.
One of them is abstaining from stealing.
Right.
Now, on a basic level, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But when we apply this to our modern world, it gets a little more nuanced.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
We don't often think about things like time, intellectual property, in the context of stealing, but those can be just as impactful as taking physical possessions.
Exactly. Have you ever felt like someone was stealing your time by constantly interrupting you or making unreasonable demands?
Yeah.
Or what about the way ideas and creative work can be appropriated without proper credit?
Right. It's almost like a subtle form of dishonesty.
Yeah.
We're not being truthful to ourselves or others when we engage in those kinds of behaviors.
Right.
So it's not just about grand gestures. It's about cultivating honesty and integrity in all aspects of our lives.
Precisely. And that's where persistence comes in.
Okay.
Cultivating virtue.
Yeah.
Especially at that higher level where it's integrated into our being.
Right.
Takes constant effort. It's like tending a garden.
Okay.
We have to weed out the negative thoughts and habits.
Yeah.
And nurture the positive ones.
So it's not a one and done thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing process of self-reflection and refinement.
Right. And that brings us back to the story of Venerable Mattagaputta pushing through those wild grasses.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that the path to inner peace and liberation isn't always easy.
Right.
There will be challenges, there will be setbacks, but it's through persistent effort, through that right effort that we talked about, that we can overcome those obstacles.
Okay, I'm curious to hear more about this right effort.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean in a practical sense?
Well, in the MN 101, the Buddha outlines 4 aspects of right effort.
Okay.
It's about preventing unwholesome qualities from arising, abandoning those that have already arisen, cultivating wholesome qualities, and maintaining those that have already been cultivated.
So it's a two-pronged approach.
Exactly.
We're both working to eliminate the negative and cultivate the positive.
Exactly. It's like we're cleaning out the clutter in our minds and creating space for more wholesome thoughts and actions.
Right.
And this connects back to what we were discussing earlier about guarding our thoughts at the middle level of virtue.
Right. It's about recognizing those negative thought patterns and choosing not to let them take root.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that?
That's a good question.
It's one thing to say, don't think negative thoughts.
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to actually control our minds.
That's where mindfulness comes in.
Okay.
It's about cultivating an awareness of our thoughts and feelings without judgment.
So it's not about suppressing those negative thoughts.
Right.
It's about observing them without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. And through that mindful observation, we create space to choose a different response.
Okay.
We can choose to focus on more positive thoughts, to cultivate kindness and compassion, to engage in actions that align with our values.
It's like we're taking back control of our minds.
Precisely.
Instead of letting our thoughts control us.
And that's where the concept of persistence is so crucial.
Okay.
It takes time and effort to develop that kind of mental discipline.
Yeah.
That ability to choose our thoughts and actions consciously.
So we've talked about truth, virtue, and persistence. And it seems like these concepts are all interconnected. They build upon each other.
Right.
But what does this all mean for our lives?
That's a great question.
How do we actually integrate these teachings into our everyday experiences?
Well, that's a great question, and it's one that each individual will have to answer for themselves. But I think the beauty of these teachings is that they offer a framework for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life, no matter what your circumstances are.
So it's not a rigid set of rules.
Right.
It's a set of principles that we can apply in a way that makes sense for our own lives.
Right. And the key is to approach it with that attitude of persistence and right effort.
Okay.
It's about continually refining our understanding of these concepts and finding ways to integrate them into our thoughts, words, and actions.
It's like a lifelong journey of self-discovery and growth.
Exactly. And it's a journey that can lead to greater happiness, peace, and fulfillment.
Right.
Not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us.
It really feels like these teachings offer a path toward a more authentic and fulfilling way of being in the world.
Yeah.
It's not just about personal happiness. It's about contributing to a greater good.
I think that's a key takeaway from all of this. These practices of truthfulness, virtue, and persistence, they're not just about individual enlightenment.
Right.
They have a ripple effect on the world around us.
That makes me think about the concept of right speech that we touched on earlier. It's not just about being honest.
Right.
It's about speaking in a way that uplifts and benefits others.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder,
yeah,
how would our interactions change if we all approach communication with that intention?
Right.
To speak truthfully, kindly, and with the aim of creating understanding.
It's like a shift in perspective, isn't it?
Is.
Instead of just focusing on getting our point across, we're considering the impact our words have on others.
Right. And that takes us back to the idea of interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Our actions, our words, they all have consequences that extend beyond ourselves.
So it's not just about cultivating these qualities for our own benefit.
Right.
It's about recognizing that our personal growth can actually contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
Precisely. And that brings us to a question we want to leave you with.
Okay.
As you reflect on these teachings of truth, virtue, and persistence, how might you apply them not only in your personal life, but also in a way that creates positive change in the world around you?
It's such a powerful thought, isn't it?
It is.
That by cultivating these inner qualities,
Yeah.
we can actually make a difference in the world. It's like you're all connected, and our actions have the potential to create a ripple effect of positivity.
Exactly. And that's what makes these teachings so relevant,
Right.
even today. They offer a timeless wisdom that can guide us toward a more fulfilling and meaningful life,
Right.
both for ourselves and for all beings.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration of Buddhist teachings has given you some food for thought and some practical tools to apply in your own life.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep seeking truth, cultivating virtue, and persisting on your journey.